What is going on? How you doing today? Jim Games here, and in today's video, I'm going to be reacting to insane survival stories. So this video is coming from a guy named Mr. Ballen over on YouTube, and a couple people have been asking me to check out some of his videos and do some reactions to it, and I just did a brief glance at his channel, and it looks like something I'm going to enjoy. He does paranormal stuff, survivor stories, military stuff, all sorts of cool things to react to, so I'm probably going to be spending some time on his channel reacting to a lot of his videos. If you're new around here, please consider liking and subscribing because I do this sort of thing all the time, and I truly appreciate it, and I'd love to have you here. All right, without further ado, let's get right on into the video. Let's switch screens here. So yeah, this is Insane Survival Stories, part 1. So apparently there's a part 2 to this video, or second video. I don't think it's updated. I think it's just another crazy survival story. But this is going to be my first experience with dealing with a Mr. Ballen video. He seems like he's pretty popular. He's got 3.2 million subscribers, so he's doing something right. And yeah, people tell me it'll be fun to react to his stuff. So let's check it out right now. Let's do it! Insane Survival Stories, part 1.
When I was in college, I went on a cruise from Florida down to the Bahamas and then back. About halfway to the Bahamas, we hit some bad weather. The boat was rocking pretty aggressively to the point where we weren't allowed to go onto the upper decks of the ship. Chairs and tables were shifting around. The crew and the staff were unconcerned. This is something they've been through. They sail this route regularly. They know the ship is equipped to handle pretty rough weather. But as a passenger, it was really terrifying to just suddenly realize that despite the safety, the perceived safety of this huge multi-hundred-million-dollar ship, the reality is when you're out in the ocean, Mother Nature's going to do whatever it's going to do.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately,
you are at the whim of Mother Nature at all times. We do not have control over this world. At any given time, something crazy can happen. You could fall into the earth from an earthquake. It could be a tornado. It could be a million different things. And you quickly realize, hey, we're actually not in control here. Mother Nature is. And that must have been pretty scary being out there on a cruise ship and being on this massive multi-million dollar, huge, massive ship. It's almost like a small city. And seeing the thing get tossed around and feeling that, like, you start to realize, hey, I'm at the mercy of whatever's going to happen here, and the weather changes quickly, and who knows what's going to happen. That must have been quite the experience.
The weather did subside, and sure enough, the ship was fine, and we sailed through it.
All right.
But it always stuck with me that if you're out in the middle of the ocean and something goes bad, it goes really bad.
Yeah.
The two stories I'm going to share are about groups of people that were out on the open ocean, and something went bad. Very, very bad.
All right.
Before we get going on today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you have come to the right channel, because that's all I do, and I upload 3 to 4, sometimes even 5 times every week.
Nice.
And if that's of interest to you, I would encourage you to gently armbar the like button and then subscribe to my channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of those weekly uploads.
I'm going to be sure to link his channel down below as well, and so far, everything seems pretty streamlined here. If he can tell his story in an engaging way where we can have some sort of like conversation or dynamic here, I'll probably be on his channel doing this for a little while. But I'm liking what I'm seeing so far.
All right, let's get into the stories.
Mr. Ballen, huh?
In the very early hours of May 26, 2013, 3 tugboats were towing this massive Chevron oil tanker in the Gulf of Guinea. They were about 32 kilometers off the coast of Nigeria. 2 of the tugboats were pressed up against the sides of this huge tanker to provide stability as it gets towed. The 3rd tugboat, which was called the Gascon 4, sat way out in front and had the main tow line strapped to the front of the tanker and was doing all of the actual towing. On board that lead tugboat, the Gascon 4, were 12 crew members who had all been hired by a company called West African Ventures. It was a Nigerian-based company. They owned the ship, and they had contracted them to come out and be a part of this towing operation. One of the crew members was a man named Harrison Okene. He was from Nigeria, and he was the ship's cook. At around 4:45 that morning, Harrison was in his quarters. He had been sleeping, but he had woken up because the ship was swaying pretty dramatically. It was very rough seas, but he, like the rest of the crew, were accustomed to rough, choppy water. So he gets up, he unlocks his bedroom door, and he goes out into the hall. When he looks down the hall, he sees that all of the other doors are shut and locked. The crew of the Gascon 4 had a policy that whenever they slept, or were in their rooms, they would shut and lock the doors because piracy is a really big threat. After Harrison looked down the hall at all of these locked doors, he started making his way down the hall in the other direction towards the bathroom. He kind of stumbled down the hall as the ship rocked from the very rough seas. He gets to the bathroom and shuts the door at 4:50 in the morning. We know this because at 4:50 in the morning, a rogue wave hit the side of Jaskin 4 and almost completely flipped it upside down.
Oh my God.
Snapped the tow line. The ship is completely on its side and it's sinking very fast. He tried to push open the metal bathroom door, but already a surge of water is coming down the hall and pressing him into the bathroom. Pushes against that surge of water and gets the door open, and now he's standing on the ceiling of the hallway that he was just in a moment ago because the boat is now completely inverted. And he's looking down the hall. 3 of the crew members have managed to come out of their locked rooms and in a panic are trying to make their way up to the exit. He sees them as another surge of water blasts in through one of the windows and literally sweeps them away. And he knows they're dead. The power cuts out right as another surge of water is coming down the hall to him. He turns his body and this rush of seawater, this freezing seawater, comes pouring down the hall, and it takes Harrison and throws him down this little hallway and slams him into yet another bathroom. It was actually an officer's bathroom. It was connected to an officer's room. And so now
he's lucky. He might be lucky that he was able to even get out of his room. The water rushing in and the pressure of the water against a door, you might not be able to open it. It might just sink to the bottom of it and drown. So he's actually lucky that he had to get up and go to the bathroom at the time that he did. But can you imagine this? You're on this boat, all of a sudden it flips upside down, you're walking on the ceiling, water's coming straight through. You just see 3 of your crewmates get swept away by the water. I'm assuming it's freezing. You just woke up. Dang, he must be terrified at this point. He must be so scared.
Now he's inside of this other bathroom and he's kind of like clamoring naturally, instinctively to go up to try to get to air.
Yeah.
Because that's what anyone would do if you're underwater in a panic. And as he's swimming up, he couldn't believe it when he gets to air. His head clears the surface in the bathroom and he's in an air pocket, but it's pitch black. All the power is out.
No.
The ship is rapidly sinking. The water is freezing. Harrison has
Oh,
only
it's
got
terrifying.
his boxer shorts on. He doesn't have a light source, he doesn't have food, he doesn't have water, and he has this couple cubic feet of air that any moment he's waiting for it to collapse. He knows
This guy is grasping for... Can you imagine how afraid you would be? You're trapped into a room. It's pitch black. The water is rushing up. You have a small air pocket that you know at any second could be just gone. The water could rise, run out of air, whatever the case may be. Like, this guy must be thinking, these are the last seconds of my life, and this is how I'm going to be going. This is how my life ends. Wow, he must have been terrified. Absolutely terrified.
These are his final moments.
Yeah.
And he remembers a prayer that his wife had texted him before he started this particular job. And he started reciting the prayer in his head as he waited to die. And the ship slams into the ocean floor, but the air pocket doesn't collapse.
So he's on the ocean floor.
So Harrison is in this tiny little air pocket 30 meters below the ocean's surface. At this point, even though Harrison has no idea how he just survived the shipwreck, he now has to deal with the fact that he's eventually going to run out of air. He'll die of dehydration. He'll die of exposure. He's in freezing water up to his neck. And most terrifyingly, sharks and other animals are going to start converging on the ship to look for food.
I didn't think about that.
And he is in a bathroom that, although there's the air pocket, the door is open into the main hall, and his entire body is inside of this bathroom, meaning if a shark were in the hallway, swimming down the inside of this hall and it made it to the bathroom, he's completely exposed with no way to shut the door. It was wedged open.
I feel for this guy. He's first off, it hit the bottom floor, so he probably realized the boat crashed. He probably realizes he's the bottom of the floor. He's just a cook, so he might not know exactly how deep down he is. He said 30 meters, but who knows what the cook is thinking, how far he's down. He doesn't realize how deep in the water that he is, and he's coming to the realization that he's going to either die from exposure, freezing to death from being in his boxers and water up to his chest, or even more brutal, being ripped apart by sharks. I didn't even think about that, but they're bound to come. Who knows? And he's saying the door's propped open, a shark could just come right in there and get him, and he's a sitting duck. Can you imagine how terrified this guy is? Oh my God. You can't help but feel for him.
So his lower half is completely exposed to whatever wildlife is inside of this ship. So he literally is just waiting to die. He just doesn't know how he's going to die. After sitting there for quite a while, he started to feel very cold.
Yeah.
And he knew that if he didn't find a way to get his body a little bit higher into the air pocket, basically get his upper body out of the water, that he was certainly going to die soon, just from hypothermia.
Yeah.
Even though he knew he was doomed, his will to live was it was bubbling through. He did not want to die yet. And as he's sitting there thinking, how is he going to get himself up into this air pocket? Because he had nothing he could step on or kind of stand on. He realized that right
pitch
next
black.
to him there was the officer's room. This was the officer's bathroom. And the door was open. He could, if he wanted to, he could dive down and swim through the door and go into the officer's bedroom and look for supplies. And in his mind, he thought he could probably pull off some of the paneling, because it's going to be pitch black in there. If he just swam straight to the far side of the room, he could get to some of the fake wood paneling.
Bump into a shark.
Yank it down. And as he's building up his courage to dive into pitch black water, he starts hearing this horrible sound of large sea creatures smashing into the boat. They were basically looking for entrance points into the boat. And then they would come into the boat, sharks.
No.
And he could hear them bumping up against the insides of the ship.
This poor
All
dude.
he's thinking is, I'm completely exposed. I'm doomed. I gotta go. I gotta go in there. I gotta at least make an attempt to save myself. And so listening to sharks and other animals searching for things to eat, he takes a deep breath, and in total darkness, he dives down and swims into the officer's bedroom. And as he's swimming, because he's just going straight across to the far wall to start yanking off that paneling, he's bumping into things that he believes are bodies. He doesn't know, but he thinks they are.
Oh,
He
man.
gets to the far wall, and he yanks off a piece of paneling. He swims back. One successful trip. He goes.
All right. If I was him, as I'm getting ready to go under the water, go into that room to try and get some sort of supplies to save myself from hypothermia, as I'm hearing giant bangs on the outside of this ship that is now on the bottom of the ocean floor, thinking sharks are just surrounding this thing, I would be thinking, this is going to be my last breath of air. Here I go. The amount of willpower and determination to live, I think, is kind of speaking volumes here. It sounds like he's going to try and make a second trip into that room as well and get even more supplies, but the first one was successful. What a roller coaster this is.
Back down, and he makes a number of trips until he's able to fashion that little raft he had in mind, like a little step stool.
Oh, cool.
That pushed him up into the air pocket to where half of his upper body was now out of the freezing water. Also, while he was in the officer's room, even though it was pitch black, he was kind of like feeling around for things, and he wound up finding a bottle of soda and a flashlight. So he turns on his flashlight and he drinks his soda and
some
he just
light,
takes a
some
breath.
liquid.
Even though he's still in the same terrible situation, he's thankful for that little victory. About 24 hours would go by where he has this light on and he's nursing the soda. He knows he's either going to die from sharks, hypothermia, dehydration, something's going to kill him. But part of him is thinking, maybe if a dive team is able to locate the ship, they're going to come down to retrieve bodies. And maybe they'll find me. Maybe I can hold out that long.
Okay.
And so as he's thinking about this, he's getting a little flicker of hope. Two horrible things happen. His light goes out.
No.
The flashlight doesn't work. At the same time that he describes hearing the large sea creatures make their way into the officer's room right next to him. So I want you to think about this. You're at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
You're in a ship that has sunk. You're in a little air pocket. You really don't have any supplies to last longer than a few days. It's total darkness. You had your flashlight, it's gone out. It's totally dark. A shark that has been eating your friends, or more than one shark, is now literally feet away from you, and you can hear it eating the bodies that apparently are in there. You are exposed to them because there's an entrance to that room and there's an entrance to the hall. The fear must have been indescribable. For the next 36 hours.
36.
Harrison sat there, listening to a shark slam into the wall, but never attack him. He heard sharks in the main section of the ship bumping around, waiting at any moment that if...
Dude, all right, so this guy been down there 36 hours listening to sharks eat his friends, eat his crewmates on the boat. Luckily, they're not attacking him for whatever reason. Maybe they're going after the easy meal, which is just dead people. But I can't imagine what's going on in this guy's head. For 36 hours, all you hear is banging from sharks. You hear your friends getting ripped apart. You're probably freezing. You're thirsty. You're starving, and you're just sitting again in the darkness. And you think, this is the way I'm going to go out. I'm going to go out just like this, and then these sharks are going to rip me apart. I mean, oh my God, I can't even imagine what this guy is thinking about right now. What's going through his mind? But it's got to be horrific. It's got to be horrific.
The ship were to just tilt a little bit, his air pocket's going to collapse.
Yeah.
It's unfathomable how terrible those 36 hours must have been. At the 60-hour mark, he hears what sounds like something metal banging on the outside of the ship. He notices through the hallway, because he has a bit of a vantage point through the water down the hall in front of him. He sees a flicker of light. And there's no light down here, so it really stood out. Without even thinking about it, he takes a deep breath and swims right into the hallway, the one place he had not been since he had gone into the bathroom, because there are sharks. And he starts swimming farther and farther and farther away from his air pocket, and he's running out of air. He can't find the light. He doesn't even know if he saw a light. He thinks he might be hallucinating.
Yeah.
And he's realizing, I'm almost out of air. He's looking around and he decides, I gotta go back to my air pocket. And he turns around, he's trying to swim back. He's looking for his bathroom, he's swimming as fast as he can. He's about to run out of air, and he makes it to his air pocket, and his head goes up, and he takes a big breath. And he's not sure if he really actually saw the light or not. And he's thinking, that was it. I thought I was gonna be rescued, but I was just imagining it.
So he went back down there. He's now second-guessing himself. Even if somebody does come, like, he tried to go out there and reach somebody because he thought he may have saw a light. That could have been... who knows what that could have been? It could have been a floating flashlight for all he knew. But he decided to go under the water and go directly swim into an area where he knew the sharks were actively eating and ripping apart his crew members. And now he finally got, but from some luck, he got back to his air pocket. And now he's probably guessing himself. He's guessing, he's guessing, like, did I actually see that? Am I hallucinating? Is this real? I mean, because you got to be going kind of crazy. I mean, think about it. 60 hours he's in this thing. That's pretty much 3 days, all right? 3 days he's just sitting there floating on this thing, freezing, starving, just drinking, what, a sip of soda? I don't know how much soda was in that thing. Probably no food. And most of the time in the darkness. Like, you got to, like... He must be going kind of crazy, and I'm sure once he got back to his air pocket, he's probably so relieved that he can breathe again, and he's probably so relieved that he didn't get eaten by a shark, but he's got to be second-guessing himself now and wondering what is real and what is not. Oh, man.
And then a miracle. It was a diver, and the diver had come back. The diver was part of a crew that had been sent down to recover bodies.
Awesome.
No one lives for 3 days underwater. So the diver comes down his way, and Harrison knew that he was going to scare the daylights out of this diver.
Yeah. Dude, what do you do to the diver? What do? You just tap them on the shoulder? Do you grab their mask? They are going to be so freaked out when they're going down there to collect bodies and they see somebody that should be dead because they don't think there's any air pockets or survivors. They think this ship has been sunk for 3 days. There's obviously no survivors, and then all of a sudden someone starts tugging on them. Can you imagine how scared the diver would be? Or maybe he's hallucinating this again. Who knows?
And so he gently touched him on the back.
Okay.
The diver reacts really violently because he's expecting it to be an animal of some kind.
I bet.
And Harrison reaches out and just grabs the diver's hand and squeezes it gently.
Oh.
And shows him his hand. And the diver's got a big light on his head. Pokes his head up into this air pocket. You see this man that for the past 36 hours has been in total darkness.
Oh, man.
Absolutely.
Dude, that is him right in there right now. This is the real footage of him. This is his air pocket. This is how high up the water is. It's amazing this guy survived. I mean, I don't know how cold this water is, but I mean, just darkness in this small room. Oh my God, that's gonna wear on the psyche, man.
No way out. He was done for.
Oh, man.
And the look on Harrison's face is just, it's priceless.
Look at that.
They fitted Harrison with a dive mask and they brought him up.
He thought he was dead. That's a look of a man who thought that he was dead, and he does not even trust if what he is seeing is real. He doesn't know if it's if he's hallucinating. He's not super happy. He's almost like apprehensive. He's almost like, am I seeing this? Is this real? Am I actually getting out of this situation? Oh, man. I feel for this guy.
He did not immediately go to the surface because he had been at depth for so long. He had to go through something called decompression.
Oh,
if he
yeah.
had just breathed air at normal pressure, he would have died. So they put him in a decompression chamber for 60 hours before actually bringing him to the surface.
Another 60 hours.
And so ultimately Harrison was okay, but the trauma of this experience was so extreme that to this day, Harrison's wife says that basically every night he wakes up thinking he's on a sinking ship.
Yeah. That's the thing, man. You're not going to get over that. When you come that close to death, when you've like almost accepted that you're going to die at any minute for 3 days straight, it's going to wear on your psyche, and you're going to carry that for the rest of your life. It's just always going to be with you. That poor guy. I can't help but feel for him. I'm glad that he got out, and hopefully he's in a different line of work. I can't imagine ever wanting to work on a ship ever again. I'd get a nice little land job, you know? You can cook at a restaurant. That's what I'd be doing. Deborah Kiley. What's this one about?
In October of 1982, Deborah Kiley and her 4 friends were hired by a billionaire to take his brand new luxury 18-meter yacht called the Trash Man from Maine all the way down to Florida. Pretty significant journey along the east coast of the United States. Deborah and her friends were very experienced sailors. They had done trips like this before, driving these luxury yachts around. This was just going to be a great trip. The weather was beautiful. The forecast looked perfect. And they were off. 2 days into their journey, when they were off the coast of North Carolina, a freak storm came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden their ship is in this massive, massive storm. And despite their best efforts to keep water from coming in, eventually the ship begins to sink. And so as the ship is clearly sinking, the crew has to abandon it, and they jump into the violently surging sea, and they climb aboard this little tiny life raft with no food, no water, no life-saving equipment. And Meg, who was one of her friends, one of Deborah's friends, had cut open her leg really badly when the ship was initially sinking. Something had fell and cut her leg. So she's bleeding into the water. As they clambered into this dinghy, Deborah remembers something nudging one of her legs.
No.
And looking out and not just seeing 1 or 2 sharks, but she described seeing hundreds of sharks. 18-foot-long tiger sharks who will eat almost anything, including people, had detected Meg's bleeding leg when she was holding on to the dinghy before she climbed in. They had all swarmed the area, and they start feeling bumps underneath their raft as the tiger sharks are swimming up and ramming into them. The storm.
So you're on this raft, all right? You're on this raft with a couple other people. I'm not sure how many other people are on this raft. Your leg is bleeding. It's now attracted the attention of sharks. You feel a nudge. You go to look down to see what it is. You verify it is a shark. But not only that, you look around, and there's not 1 or 2, but hundreds of sharks around you. Your only safety is this rubber raft, which could easily be pierced by a shark biting it. And then they're all just screwed. That's a scary situation. You know, I mean, even on a boat, you know, I mean, things can happen. But when you're on a rubber raft and you can feel a shark banging into you, it could literally launch you off that boat if they wanted you off that boat, or that raft, rather.
The storm ultimately passed, and daylight broke, and they're out in this dinghy. They don't know what to do. They're surrounded by all these sharks that are literally swimming around them. They have no resources. They have nothing. They have no way to save themselves.
No flares or anything?
Meg was becoming very sick from the wound in her leg, and everyone knew that probably they were going to die out here. So desperately thirsty were some of the crew members that they began leaning over and drinking seawater until they would vomit. And it was around this time.
Dude, so you're not supposed to do that. You know, they say that happens all the time. People trapped out at sea, they drink the seawater. And what happens is it makes you go crazy at some point, or like violently ill, and you'll throw up so much that you'll get even more dehydrated. But you're so thirsty. You want that wetness on your lips so much you're willing to drink seawater that you know is inevitably going to kill you just for a couple seconds of comfort, you know? Dang, that is too bad. That is too bad. So they're switching to that. That's not going to be good. That's not good. They're going to get sick.
When they were drinking seawater on the 3rd day, that some of the hallucinations began.
Oh, yeah, that too.
They all would see ships in the distance, and they would hear things that weren't really there. They were losing it. And it was also around this time that John, one of the crew members, said that he saw land.
Oh.
And he leapt out of the boat.
No.
They screamed for him to come back, but he lost his mind. And they said he only made it about a few meters away from the boat before they hear him start screaming.
No.
And the sharks swarm him and pull him under the water.
Oh no.
Deborah would say that when this happened, they heard the scream and they all ducked down inside of the boat. Didn't say a word, didn't even react to it. They knew what was happening.
Oh my God. All right, so you got to think of the psyche again, of like being out there on the water for days with no supplies, resorting to drinking salt water, that you know is going to make you sick or hallucinate and do crazy stuff for that couple seconds of comfort. And then you come to terms with your own mortality, I would imagine. And he said they all kind of just sunk in there and slunk down, and we're hearing this dude get ripped apart, and it must have been horrific. You knew what's going on, but nobody's talking. Nobody's trying to save the guy. They're probably just too weak to move, honestly. And it's got to be horrific because you're probably thinking, that's me. I'm next. I'm the next one. This is how I go. This is how I die. And I can't imagine what that does to your psyche. Oh, that poor guy. He thought he saw land. He drank the seawater, saw a hallucination. Hey, land's right there. What am I doing in this boat? I'll just jump in and we'll swim over there. Ooh, that's horrific.
Happening. And they knew what was going to happen to them. They were all going to die.
Yeah.
Shortly after John had jumped in the water and been eaten by sharks, Mark stands up and says that he needs to get something at the store.
No.
He's clearly hallucinating.
No.
The other three, they tell him, you're hallucinating, get back here,
Dude.
sit back down. He wasn't having it, and he stepped off the boat.
Oh my
Immediately,
God.
just like John, the sharks swarm him, except they pull him underneath their life raft. In fact, Deborah would say that the violence of the sharks attacking him caused their dinghy to spin. And much like when John had been attacked, they all just laid there in silence because they knew that they were all doomed.
Oh my God.
By the fourth day, everybody was on a steady decline. They didn't have any water, any food. Meg especially was outright dying. I mean, she had this horrible wound that had gone untreated.
Yeah.
At some point, Deborah and the other crew member who was not hurt, his name was Brad, they fell asleep, and when they woke up, Meg had passed away from her infection.
Oh.
They took off her jewelry and any of her valuables they could give to her family, and then they put her on the edge of the boat. They said a couple words, a little funeral for her, and then they pushed her into the water. And then they laid down inside of the raft as the sharks attacked. At this point...
You got to feel for Meg, too. At this point, the remaining people that are left on this raft, they've seen two people jump off the boat because they were hallucinating. One person succumbed to her injuries, Meg. She just passed away. God, that's horrific. And it's just... It's a numbers game. It is a time game. You only have so much time you can survive without water or food. And man, it's just an all-around horrible situation.
Deborah and Brad, the last two, they are laying in this lifeboat, fully exposed to the elements. They have no way to save themselves. And at some point they fell asleep, and they probably thought they wouldn't wake up again. But they woke up on the fifth day.
5 days.
Brad looks out and thinks he sees a ship. And so he looks down and looks back up to make sure he's not hallucinating, and he still sees the ship. He looks down again and looks back up, and it's still a ship, and it's coming.
I swear to God, if there's no ship and this guy jumps off and he gets ripped apart too, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. This better be a real ship.
Coming closer to them. And he tells Deborah, hey, there's a ship. I'm not imagining it. There's a ship. And she does the same thing. She kind of looks away, like, is that really a ship? And sure enough, it was. And they start waving and using all their energy to try to get this ship to see them, and the ship has clearly seen them. They're waving back. That ship would end up coming over, scooping up Deborah and Brad, getting them to a hospital,
Nice.
And they would make full recoveries. Deborah would go on to be an incredible motivational speaker, as you can imagine, with an experience like that, and she also wrote a book about her experience being lost at sea. Brad would actually continue to go back to sea. He was an accomplished mariner. He would end up becoming the captain of his own ship, and he would regularly sail that route that they crashed on. It's hard.
Brad, you crazy. You crazy, Brad. No. You survived something like that one time. I'm a firm believer you just don't do that stuff again, all right? I'm not saying stay away from the ocean for the rest of your life, but maybe not make it your career. Dang. After that, coming to terms with your mortality and figuring like you're going to die starving, thirsty, and being burnt to a crisp from the sun, you decide you still want to keep doing it? That's dedication, man. That's dedication.
It's hard to imagine Harrison, Deborah and Brad going back to a normal life, but ultimately they did. You know, they had this incredible experience. I'm sure it was incredibly traumatic, but I'm sure it gave them a new sense of purpose in the life that they were now being gifted, because they really should not have been alive. Deborah would actually say in one of her keynotes that there's never a day you feel more thankful for life than the day you almost die. If you enjoyed today's stories, I would ask you to please kindly armbar the like button and then subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly 3 to 4 video uploads that sound an awful lot like what you just listened to. If you want to get
let's let him finish here.
in touch with me, you can message me on Instagram. My handle is johnballen416. I'm also very active on TikTok, where my handle is Mr. Ballen. Wherever I see you, I'm just incredibly thankful for your support. And until next time, see ya.
So that was my first experience with Mr. Ballen. He's an incredible storyteller, and he definitely paints a picture for you. I definitely like it. I like it. And from some of the other thumbnails and topics I've seen on his channel, I think I'd like to continue with this guy, honestly. He talks about all kinds of paranormal stuff, ghost stuff, survival stories, just stuff that makes you go, wow. So I think it'll be great videos to react to. And quite frankly, it's just interesting. It's interesting. A little bit dark from time to time. This might be a little darker than my normal everyday video, but I still dig it. I still dig it, and I still like it. So yeah, we're gonna do that. If you enjoyed your time with me today, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'm gonna be sure to link Mr. Ballen down in my description, because if you like what he's doing, let's show a little support his way as well. All right, guys, I'm gonna catch you out in the next video. Bye now.